Here are the settings that I recommend if you want to bring along the DJI Osmo Action 4 on any type of vlogging or travel adventure. So recently I brought along the Osmo Action 4 on an adventure to the Natural Bridge in Virginia. Now, if you haven't heard of the Natural Bridge before, it's this cool landmark. It's actually a lot bigger in person than I expected. It's this neat little archway that's carved out of stone. And it's a real cool place to hike down into that gorge and to walk underneath it, and then to kind of hike along a stream for a little while. And the Osmo Action 4, I used the settings I'm going to show you today, and it definitely did not disappoint. The footage came out really well, and you're going to see a lot of samples in today's video. But before we get into the settings, there are a couple pieces of gear that I highly recommend pairing with the Osmo Action 4 for the best possible vlogging experience. One of those is this tripod selfie stick combo that you see the Osmo Action 4 on right here. So what this is first of all, it is a tripod as you just saw, but it's also this nice grip that you can hold the Action 4 on. But in addition, it also extends to 57 inches. So you can extend this way out, and it's really good for talking to it because you can get the camera out far away from you, and you don't have to be awkwardly holding it with your hand right here, hoping you're not getting your finger across the lens or in the frame of view. So I really like this selfie stick from Ulanzi. And as I showed you before, of course, it does have the tripod function as well. So if you want to do those shots where you're walking past your Action 4 and your Action 4 is stationary, this is perfect for that as well. You can easily fold down the legs here, and you can have it filming you as you walk past it. Typically, the selfie stick is less than $30. And I've had this for quite a while now, and I've been really happy with it. I use it with a lot of my action cameras. I use it for time lapses and night lapses as well. It's just been a really good accessory. And if you want to do vlogging with your Action 4, the other accessory I recommend picking up is the DJI Mic 2. Now, the great thing about the DJI Mic 2, DJI released a firmware update back in December of 2023 that allows you to wirelessly pair the Mic 2 with the Action 4. So now you don't have to mess with any of those audio cables awkwardly hanging off the side of the Action 4. You don't have to worry about them getting disconnected. You can easily pair this with the Action 4. You can wear it, and you can wirelessly send audio to the Action 4. And I recommend this because you're going to get really good audio quality out of this. I use this all the time when vlogging or anytime outside filming, even if I'm talking to my Sony a7S III right here, because it gets really good video quality. It's got that 32-bit float inside, and it's got the nice wind muff here. So if it's a windy day out, I don't have to worry about my audio getting crushed. But do keep in mind, it's only the DJI Mic 2 that will work with this. The original DJI Mic will not work with the Action 4. It's only the Mic 2 if you want to pair it wirelessly. You could, of course, use the original DJI Mic with it paired via the receiver. If you had the receiver plugged into the Action 4, the original DJI Mic would work. And the third accessory I recommend picking up is the set of ND filters from Freewell for the Action 4. Now, you don't have to have these ND filters for the settings I'm going to show you today. This camera will work perfectly well as is without these. But if you want to have a slower shutter speed that looks more appealing to the human eye, I recommend picking these up because these will enable you to do that. And these also have an ND 1000 filter in here and a polarizer. So even if you don't want to use ND filters, if you just want the polarizer right here, this will help you get a lot better colors in the sky and the environment around you. This will help filter out light pollution. But the advantage of the ND 1000, if you're doing anything where you'd like to get some long exposure photos with your Action 4, the ND 1000 will allow you to do that. Waterfalls, ocean waves, clouds from the summit of a mountain, anything like that, ND 1000 will let you slow down your shutter speed to a couple seconds, and you can take some really nice photos or time lapses. It's going to have that nice smooth motion in anything that's moving, and I really like that effect. But for the settings I'm going to show you today, you don't have to have these, but they will enhance the look of your footage. So now that we've talked about accessories, let's get into the settings that I recommend for the best vlogging and travel videos. So first of all, you want to make sure you're in video mode. And once you've confirmed you're in video mode, you want to click down here at the bottom. I highly recommend being in 4K, but if you want to do any vertical reframing later on, do 4K 4:3. I like to do 4K 4:3 because I can add some motion later on. Basically, 4K 4:3 footage you can drop onto a 16:9 timeline, and it's going to look fine on there. It's going to center it by default. But with 4:3, you have some extra resolution up here at the top and at the bottom. So what that means is later on, you can reframe that on a 16:9 timeline if you want it to be pointing up more or pointing down. That's all it does. If you do 16:9, you simply don't have that workability. So I like to do 4:3 because I find it's more flexible later on. As far as the frame rate, if you're going to be talking to the camera and you live in the United States or a country that does NTSC, I recommend doing 24 frames per second or 30. If you live in a country that does PAL, then I recommend doing 25 frames per second. And if there is any footage that you would like to slow down later on, I recommend doing 4K 60 for those clips. And you can obviously save separate presets here if you want to. I have one that I save as 4K 60 and one that I save as 4K 24. And then when I want to do just talking to the camera or anything normal speed, I do 4K 24. And then anything I want to slow down later on, I do 4K 60. And up here for Rocksteady, I recommend having Rocksteady set to the default. That doesn't crop as much as Rocksteady Plus does. Rocksteady gives great stabilization without the crop. So we're going to swipe down here and we're going to click over here to adjust the other parameters. So first of all, you want to make sure Pro is turned on up here. Pro is going to unlock the settings that we need. First one that's key here is exposure. So for exposure, you can keep this set to auto, but we're going to set some ranges here. And the nice thing about the Action 4 is you can set ranges so that your shutter speed doesn't get below a certain threshold. That can cause jitter and ghosting. And also you can limit your ISO with how high it goes so you don't have any grain in your footage. And of course you can set the EV value here as well. So let's set the EV first. I like to do -0.3. That's going to protect some of those highlights, especially in the sky or the clouds, any place that's bright in your frame. It's going to prevent you from losing detail in that part of the frame. And then let's click up here where it says S1200. And this is for the shutter speed. So for shutter speed, I like to set a range of 1/200 to 1/8000. And what this means simply is it means the shutter speed will never get slower than 1/200. And that is key because if your shutter speed does get slower than that, if you're going in like a part of shady forest or in any type of low lighting, it is going to give you jitter and ghosting with Rocksteady turned on. So unless you want to use a gimbal, I highly recommend setting this range here. Then you don't have to worry about the shutter speed. You can just film your adventure, your vlog, and you can be guaranteed that you're not going to have jitter and ghosting later on. The third setting I like to adjust here is I like to set the ISO range from 100 to 800. This means the camera will lower the ISO to 100 or as close to 100 as possible. But if you do go into a lower lighting situation or shade, it will raise it as high as 800. I don't like to go over 800 with the ISO on here. You could get noise and grain in your footage, and noise and grain does not look good. So I'm going to click confirm here. Next, I like to set the white balance. If you're outside during the day filming, I like to do a white balance anywhere from 5,000 up to 5,600K. 5,600K is that traditional white balance for daylight, but there's a lot of factors to take into account, like is it cloudy out, is it sunny out? That can vary. So anywhere between 5,000K and 5,600K, you're going to be fine. I often like to do 5,000K. I like a little bit cooler look with my footage during the daylight, but that's still within the acceptable range, and I like how that looks. Whatever you do, don't keep it set to auto here, because auto white balance is going to be tricky later on when you put together your final project. Some scenes can look weird because your white balance isn't going to be consistent. And if you do happen to be filming at sunrise or sunset, you will want to set that white balance to 6,500K. For the color mode down here, you've got normal or D-Log M. So with the color mode, it's going to be dependent on, do you want to grade this footage later on, or do you just want it straight out of the camera as far as the color goes? So if you do want to grade it later on, select the D-Log M there. The D-Log M is going to give you a little bit more dynamic range, and it's going to help you really customize the look of your footage. You can add the saturation you want because it's going to be very flat footage. So if you want to do that grading later on, I do have a video. I'll link to it at the end of this. And I go through the entire process of grading D-Log M footage on the Action 4. But if you don't have any interest in grading later on, then select Color Normal there. Color Normal does look great. It's great right out of the camera. So the next setting here for the field of view, a couple recommendations here. If you're going to be talking to the camera, or you're going to have people or buildings in the city, anything like that in it, I recommend the standard D-Warp. I like to keep that as my default because that is quite wide. It's 15 millimeters, and that's plenty. But if you do have some type of scene where you really want to capture something wider or ultra wide, like if there's a big mountain landscape or something where you just want to have the width of it around you to make you look small in that scene, then I recommend doing ultra wide. But as a default, I do keep standard D-warp set right there. And then down here for the adjustments, I do like to have the sharpness set all the way to low, and the lowest sharpness is -2. If I need to add any sharpness later on, I can do that. And then for the noise reduction, I like to keep this right here in the middle. The camera can do some of that noise reduction for me. I don't want it all the way up to 1 because it can make the footage look overly smooth, but I also don't like it at -2 with no noise reduction at all. So I prefer right there around 0. I find I like how that footage looks. But one other thing I wanted to show you is how to pair the DJI 2 mic. So we're first of all going to power the mic on here, and I'm going to set it down next to the camera. And we're going to go up here, and we're going to click on this gear in the upper right here. And we're going to scroll down to wireless mic. So it gives us instructions there. So on the DJI Mic 2, we're going to press and hold the record button until it turns solid blue. Then we're going to press and hold the linking button until it blinks blue quickly. All right, it's in the process of connecting right now. And then it's going to say wireless mic connected. And then we're going to click confirm. And there are some settings, of course, you can adjust down here. And you, of course, can format the transmitter as well. Once you've done that, it's all paired. And if we go back to the main screen here, you can see right up there at the top, you can see the wireless mic, which is cool. It's nice to see the volume levels up there. So your Action 4 is now ready to go for vlogging or travel adventures. Speaking of the Action 4 and getting great footage, if you'd like to learn more about how I grade D-Log-M on the Action 4, check out this video right here. It'll walk you through that entire process and make it simple for you to get the very best looking footage from the Action 4.